All right, perfect.
So Rob's going to tell you why everything Mike just told
I
you
kind of know a
does
little bit
not
what you said.
matter.
Like, I followed it. I love it.
So,
So
Yeah.
Rob
so
is Bob
when
like,
it's hard to
Rob,
sell,
Yeah.
you got to use creative
Mike, leave him alone.
scenarios.
Exactly. Just gotta
Exactly.
get
So
creative.
you
Get
in
out
more
of here. You're
demand.
done.
100%.
For one more year, you're in demand.
All right.
Exactly. And then,
Yeah.
then it's over, dude.
$15 million worth of real estate, a lot of it recently, and you've picked up a lot of deals with 2 to 4% interest rates. Do you care what the 10-year treasury is at?
I do not, no.
Okay, so he's going to show you guys how to buy deals today with 2 to 4% interest rates while Mike is worrying about the 10-year treasury. We love Mike, we just like to shit on Mike. But Rob's going to share his experience, how he built that portfolio, and so you guys can hopefully do the same. But
Awesome. Here you go, Rob. Yo, thank you. Oh, the infamous clicker. I love this. And I wish that I had some cool stuff to point at with the laser, but I really don't, so we can just click through on stuff. First of all, thank you, Alex. Thank you, Trevor. You know, this meetup is like amazing, like completely amazing. You guys, what you guys have put together and done here is, I go to all the meetups, so I know some of the people, I see a lot of similar people because I'm like a professional networker, so I'm constantly going to all the meetups to meet all the cool people. And then also, I mean, this is how deals get done.
hey, this is better than Mike's Portland meetup.
No, what's so dope about these meetups is that everybody that's in this room are at different stages. You know, how many people here haven't done a deal? Exactly. How many people have done 10 deals or more? See, you have a big range here. So you have the people that haven't done stuff, people that have done tons of deals. You just need to meet each other. And that's the cheat code to going from where you're at here to actually building a portfolio, because you have people in here that don't own any property, to like Gabe, who owns, how many doors do you own, Gabe?
1,000.
Exactly. So like everything that you need to be successful in real estate is right here in this room. There are lenders, there's people that have deals, people that don't have deals. So Trevor, you and Alex for putting this on. This is amazing. This is I have several people I've done deals with in here, like Danny. You know, I've done a deal with Danny. Matt Parker, right back over there, done a deal with him. AJ, are you still here, AJ? He left. He bugged. So yeah. So thank you guys so much. Can we give these guys a round of applause? Okay, where do I have to point the clicker? There you go. There we go. All right, who am I? So I'm a husband, I'm a father. In fact, my kiddo is right here. She helped me make these slides, so thank you so much. I was very frustrated. I started into making the slides a couple months ago, and she saved me. So that's me and my wife. That was a vacation we were on last year, and we love to travel. And I'm also a business owner, so I have a construction company. We do drywall, insulation, and paints, Indigo Construction. We also have a water damage company. My brother-in-law is the one that I just get all the benefits from it. He actually built the business, made it into an amazing thing. But Restoration One of Portland, Restoration One of Phoenix in Arizona, and he's also building out Restoration One of Corvallis right now. So my brother's like a eager beaver. My brother-in-law, he's amazing. But I'm also a real estate investor, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. Okay, so real estate investments. This slide is somewhat inaccurate. It says 29 doors. Technically, it's 28. Number 29 was supposed to close today, but the sellers are having a problem with technology. We did an online notary. 2 nights in a row, they couldn't get their technology figured out, so they weren't able to close. But it does close tomorrow, so that's the good part. And out of those 29 doors, 15 of those doors are subject to doors, or sub-2 doors. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight, is about the creative finance part of it, and to focus in on subject to, what that is and how to do that and how you can replicate what I've done. Okay, so how did I get into real estate investing? My journey started back with Bigger Pockets. How many people here listen to Bigger Pockets? And yeah, so you guys know exactly where I'm coming from on that. Bigger Pockets was the biggest thing for me back in 2012 through like 2016. I was listening to every single thing they had, and they were pushing the BRRRR strategy. So are you guys familiar with the BRRRR strategy? Yeah, I see a lot of heads nodding. Yeah, I went down the BRRRR rabbit hole. That's what I wanted to do. That's all I was interested in doing. and I started underwriting every single deal that came my way. I started, getting on every wholesale list, and, like Net Worth Realty. These guys are, I think they're here right now still. My net worth people, where are they at? They left. Net worth, discount property wholesalers. There's all these amazing lists you can get on. So I got on the list. I started underwriting all for BRRRR deals. Now, I ran into a big challenge with that because with BRRRR deals, you need to have either a really low purchase price or really high rents to make it work. And that's why it's really successful in the Midwest. The Midwest, it's super easy to do that. Hey, Gerardo, sorry, I know I wandered over. So in the Midwest, it's really easy to do those because you're buying stuff. I have buddies buying stuff for $30K, putting $50 into it, and refinancing it out and getting a check for $15,000 and having a cash flow. Well, you can't do that here in Oregon or in Washington because you're buying much higher, rents are much lower, so it's really hard to make that work. So I went looking at BRRRR deals, trying to find another solution to buy property to where I could get all my money back and have it make sense to where I could build my portfolio without spending a ton of money and leaving a lot of money into deals. So I was listening to Bigger Pockets, and they had this crazy guy come on. He started talking about how he was taking over mortgages. He talked about how he was getting into money for very little down. Like sometimes sellers were paying him to buy the properties. So it was just insane the stuff that this guy was doing. So I had to look up his name after, and I go, who is this guy that's doing all this crazy stuff? And his name was Pace Morby. So once I found his name, I went and, of course, Googled him. Is this guy a scam? Is this legit? Is this something that everyday people can do? And then I got on his YouTube channel. And I'll tell you right now, if you haven't been on his YouTube, it's like a dark hole because you can, you can spend hours, days, you can spend your whole life on there, which is really dangerous because you actually want to take action instead of spending all your time consuming content. So that's the big thing. So, oh.
What was his name? Pace?
Yeah, Pace Morby.
Morby.
Yeah, Morby, M-O-R-B-Y.
Thank you for the slow part of the room.
Yeah, you're all good. So once I found Pace, I went down the rabbit hole of like, what is, like he has, it's like a huge envelope of what you can find. Like there's all types of, any type of transaction that's creative. But the one that interested me the most is the one that involved subject to purchases, and we're going to talk about those here in a little bit. But I joined Subto in April of 2022. So I'll be coming up on my 3-year anniversary here in a few months. But in that period, so before April of 2022, I only owned 4 properties. So I had the typical experience that most people do where they buy a house and then they go to move and they're like, well, I heard that it was a good idea to rent your house out when you buy another one. So I just did that model. Moved out, bought another house. I did that 3 times. And in the process of it too with our business, we built a commercial building. That was in 2006. But my first house, bought it in 2004. It's in Molalla. So if anybody here is from Molalla, you know that, there we go, we got we got somebody from Molalla as well. House out there, but I bought it in 2004 for $143,000. And at the time, my family and friends were like, you are absolutely crazy. Like, who pays $140,000 for a house in Molalla? Well, that house right now, I still have it, and it's worth $440,000. So 21 years later, it's almost done a triple. So that's one of the reasons why everybody should buy a property. That's why you should get into real estate. So that was my first purchase, but I had 4 doors coming into joining Pace's mentorship. Then after I joined the mentorship, I've added on 25 doors in a period of 3 years. They're all single-family homes, a couple duplexes, 1 triplex, but mainly single-family houses. This here is the very first property I purchased creatively. And this was a seller, and it's kind of a cool story because it's actually in Aloha, Oregon. It says Beaverton, but the technical address is, it's technically in Aloha. Why that's important to know is because Aloha is in the unincorporated area of Washington County. So we have the ability to do a short-term rental on this legally without having to worry about all the regulations and all the changes that are coming. So this one here, when I joined Subto, they had this program called Zero to Hero. And it completed like maybe 4 months before I joined. But I wanted to take action immediately. Like as soon as I joined, I'm like, how do I get going? How do I get this started? So what they recommend in this challenge basically is that you pull a list, you pick a market, pull a list, skip trace the list, and then get a VA or virtual assistant to go and dial the list. And this method still works really well now. So if you're looking to get started, this is the way to go. VA's calling, finding people. Well, my VA hit this guy named Lester. Lester had a property in Aloha that on the first call, he mentioned that he had squatters in there. We didn't really call them squatters. He just said that they were tenants that hadn't been paying. He goes, I got some tenants in here. I'm like, how long have they not been paying, Lester? He's like, oh, it's been a little while. I'm like, well, how long, Lester? He goes, it's been a couple months. Okay. Now, the next phone call with Lester, he opened up a little bit more. He's like, oh, they've been in there a little over a year. It's like, wow, a couple months to a year now. So now I'm finding an indication that he's in pain because like he's not collecting. He's letting these people live there. They're not paying. So there's something going on here. So a couple more conversations with Lester. It kept growing to like 3 years, and then it was like 5 years. It was like, wow, how long have these people been living here? It's been forever. Well, in the course of negotiations, this was my very first deal that actually closed. I had another one that I got under contract that didn't close. That's a whole nother story, but this one here is the one I want to focus on because this is a seller finance deal, and the first one that actually did close. Well, Lester indicated that he was open to a creative offer because we came in with cash first, and every deal that I've ever done has been with somebody else. I've never found a deal, negotiated a deal, funded a deal by myself. Everything has been with other people. That's why I speak so highly of like a room like this where you can collaborate with other people, because this is where you find private money. This is where you find JV partners. This is where you find somebody that can close your deal. This is where you find someone that will buy your deal. All the aspects you need are right here. So I wanted to JV with everybody in the Subto community when I joined. And I reached out to a guy named John Robinson. He's in Beaverton. He runs a Meetup over there as well. And he's amazing. So John gave me some pointers. He said, Rob, on this one here, you need to get this for around 230 to 260 cash for us to flip it, because it needs a lot of work. So I went back to Lester and I came up with 230 to 260. That number did not work for him. Like, how many of you guys have had cash conversations with sellers and they're just not open to anything low? Well, this guy wasn't open to it, but as we were taught in Subto to pivot to terms, we asked him, hey, are you open to terms? And Lester said, well, what does that mean? I said, well, we give you some money down, pay you some money along the way, and then at some point we'll balloon you out. He said, okay, I'm definitely open to that. Now, I didn't know what to offer him because I was so brand new, so I went back to John and I said, John, what should we offer here? John goes, well, you offered him 230 to 260. He said no, so let's try anywhere from 260. Our maximum would be like 330. But I really had no idea what any of that really meant, as far as, because I was so brand new. So I went back to Lester, and I was very, very nervous. So on the phone call, when we were talking, he said he was open to terms, he's open to taking payments. And I said, I made the mistake of going right to my maximum. I said, well, what about 330,000? And Lester's like, done. Done. I'm like, and I knew immediately there that I'd messed up. So Lester, after that, he goes, well, what kind of interest are you going to pay me? So here's my chance to redeem myself. I thought, okay, I already gave him his maximum. Let's just try to get him for 0%. So I said, well, Lester, what if we're paying you 330? So what if it was principal only? He's like, no interest? I go, yeah, no interest. And I just let it sit. Lester thought about it for a second. There's a long, uncomfortable pause. He said, yeah, I'm good with that. Okay, it's got 0% interest. And then he's like, well, how long do you need me to carry it? And I was very, very new, so I just said 5 years. And he said, yeah, he's open to that. So what we have here, this property right here, is 0% interest. So we actually gave Lester $5,000 down. He carried the note for 5 years, or he's going to carry it for 5. We're a couple years into it. and it's 0%. So our payment to Lester is $902 a month. We're paying principal and interest, obviously, or not principal and interest, taxes and insurance on that. So our total payment's like around $1,200 a month. It's currently an Airbnb, so we have it as a short term. This winter has been harsh though, right, Mike? We've had a rough winter.
Fuck Airbnb.
Yeah.
In my head.
I hear you there. No, this winter was rough. Last winter was not rough, but we're averaging about net around $3,500 a month net with this one. So our outlays, roughly $1,600 a month, and we're bringing in $3,500 after expenses. So it turned out to be a home run deal. We still have it. We love this property. What's that? Yes, we did. We put in, well, okay. So this is the best part, is that we spent about $90,000 in the rehab. Yeah, we gave it a full update, a full complete update. So we put quite a bit into it. Yeah, it is getting top rent, but would I do this deal now like that? No, I wouldn't. I would have negotiated it much lower. Yeah, I did. So we did. We have a construction company, so we're doing the full rehab. I mean, one thing we did learn on that one thing I'd recommend to anybody that's buying anything in the 70s, check to see if there's sheeting. Like we planned on replacing the siding, but there was no sheeting. Like they literally sided right over the studs on this thing. So where a guy pulled the siding off. Yeah. Okay, so the squatters. Oh, I skipped over the best part. Oh my gosh. So Lester, on day of closing, we're at close of escrow. We sign. And we're talking to Lester, and we're like, he goes, I am so relieved. I go, why are you so relieved, Lester? He goes, the family that was in there had been living there for 15 years and hadn't paid him rent. 15, yeah, every time it kept extending. So what happened there with Lester is that he had a Hispanic family move in, like way long time ago, and the main person he signed the lease with got deported, left, and then he kept having family member after family member come up, and he didn't know who to communicate with. And Lester's so Lester's not hurting here. So you don't have to worry about Lester on that end of it, because Lester, in the course of conversation, I go, Lester, so why haven't you taken care of this? He goes, and this is his answer, guess how much I pay in taxes? I go, well, how much do you pay? He goes, my businesses pay $250,000 every quarter. I was like, okay. So Lester's just so rich that he just doesn't give a shit, basically. So to answer your question, he had squatters there for 15 years. He just didn't want to deal with the problem. So there's problems like that in the marketplace, and if you can solve those problems, you can get 0% deals. That's what's amazing about this. Now that was just a seller finance transaction. Now we're going to talk about subject to. Subject to is when you purchase a property, you're purchasing it subject to the underlying mortgage or underlying liens. So everybody gets confused and thinks that, well, I even thought this, like, do I own my house or does the bank own my house? In the beginning, a long time ago, I just assumed that the bank owns my house, and then when I pay the bank off, then I own the house. But it's not that way. Whoever has title, which is you, if you purchase a property, you hold title. You own the property. The debt is completely separate. It's an instrument. Now, if you don't pay your debt, they can take your house, but they don't own the house. You own the house. So subject to is when you purchase a property subject to the underlying debt or mortgage. It could be liens, it could be solar liens, it could be any form of debt or lien against the property. You're purchasing it subject to that. So why would you buy a property subject to? Like, why even go through that? Like, why even have that hassle? Because if you think about it, it's kind of a crazy thing. Like, I'm going to buy your house, and the debt's going to stay in your name, and I'm going to own it. Like, when you really think about that, that's pretty crazy.
Interest rates.
Yeah, well, yeah, as the buyer, interest rates are definitely the reason why that's low equity. Yep, exactly. Okay, so here are the reasons why. Now, some of this stuff applies to all real estate. Other things apply to, like I'm going to relate it all to subject to type purchases, but like appreciation is one of the biggest reasons why we're building our portfolio. We have a goal of building a portfolio of 25 million. That's our next goal. Why 25 million? Because at 25 million with basic appreciation of 4 to 6%, somewhere in there, you're appreciating your portfolio at $1 million a year. So at some point, you can refinance properties and pull out $1 million a year tax-free. So that's the reason why we have a goal of 25 million. Well, if you look back in 1925, the average home price, and this is only 100 years ago, was $6,000 to $7,500. Now, if you adjust that for inflation, just on dollars, I guess I could use my cool Mike Nuss pointer on this stuff. But if you adjust that for inflation, it's 110 to 140,000 in today's dollars. But in 2024, the median home price was 417. So as you can see, there's quite a big difference between adjusted money and what actual real estate's, how it's performing. So like in 2025, we're expecting the median home price to be around 425, which is 3 to 4 times more than the inflation adjusted price from 1925. So appreciation, getting into these properties for very low down, very inexpensive, you're gonna look at getting, we predict like a double, like every 9 to 14 years, whatever you purchase right now is gonna double in value. Just like my example before with my house in Malala in 2004, it's almost done a triple. So whatever you're buying, if you can get into these deals subject to or otherwise, you're looking at getting, a lot more money down the road. Yeah.
What was that rule about you can pull out $1 million?
Yes, so this is amazing. So everything that we do, I'm more excited about debt than I'm anything else. Like that's the reason why I love subject to and purchasing properties this way. So I'm always looking at debt in a different way. So a cash out refi, so basically as your tenant in your property is paying down that mortgage in 7, 10, 12 years, whatever timeline you're looking at, if you can refinance a property, debt is not taxed. So you can take that money out of the property in a cash out refi and you can live off it. You can do whatever you want with it. Sushi money, whatever. Like that's your money and it's tax free. It's amazing. Now the other reason why we buy a property is for depreciation. Now that's crazy about this is that you look at straight line depreciation, that's what most people do if you're gonna do it. I don't know why it's 27 and a half years. Why 27? Why not 28? Why not 30? Why not match the mortgage? I don't know. But the IRS figured that 27 and a half years is the number. Now 2024 bonus depreciation is at 60%. So hopefully that gets reset back to like 100% bonus depreciation. And why that's important to me is because last year, we bought enough property. It was the first year that I did not pay income tax based on depreciation. So it can wipe out your active income. So that's the other reason why you want to buy these sub-2 properties, because a lot of these properties you can get into $15,000, $20,000 out of pocket, and the tax savings are $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. So you can actually get more money back using a cost segregation study and doing bonus depreciation than you put into the property. It's kind of crazy. So a cost seg study is a very unique thing where it kind of puts all the expenses of the property into different columns. Some of them are 5 years, some are 10, some are 15. If you want more information about that, you can look it up on YouTube or hit me up. I can connect you with the people that I use on it. But you have to become a real estate professional. So that's the other side of it. So that's something you need to talk to your CPA about to figure out if you qualify as a real estate professional. Now, one of the cool things for the wholesalers in the room is that we all need to get licensed here coming up July 1st. So as a wholesaler, you're gonna get a real estate license or you're gonna work with somebody who has a real estate license. So that's something to keep into account. But when you actually get that license, I would argue that you're a real estate professional. You're a licensed real estate professional at that point. But check with your CPA on that, but that's a great way for you to qualify as one and be able to take all this depreciation that you can get on these deals you find.
There are regulations on that. You have to spend more than 50% of your time doing that. You have to spend at least 750 hours a year. If you are a dentist and you've got a couple of rentals, you will not be considered a real estate pro for tax purposes. And the IRS audits for that. That is low-hanging fruit for them, somebody claiming it when they can. However, if you do something else for a real living, you can offset all of your rental profit, even with a single study potentially, even though you've got a bunch of doors. Cost saving is wonderful. That's what I do. It's been around since '97, but know the facts. Don't
Awesome.
be silly.
So we have a guy right here. So anybody's interested in it, hit him up after for sure. But some of my buddies do it a little bit differently. Well, they'll get their wife or their partner or whoever to go get their real estate license. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. He probably can guide you on that. But definitely look into it because the benefits are massive if you're doing that. Okay, cash flow and loan pay down. So the other cool thing, when you're getting interest rates, like for example, the lowest one we have in our portfolio is a house in Monmouth. It's 2.2% interest. It's the lowest one I've ever seen. In fact, I was bragging about it at another meetup, and then Pace actually said his lowest one was 1.9%. So kind of outdid everybody there, but 2.2 I thought was really, really good. So with a 2.2% interest, it actually makes that payment low enough to where we can actually cash flow on the rental. So we can actually rent that property out, I think on the Monmouth one, we're making like $500 a month in cash flow. If that were at an investor loan rate of like 7%, we'd probably be losing $200 a month on the same deal. Now, the other cool thing about these is that the loan pay down, as far as like a lot of times we're buying these properties that are 2 or 3 years into the actual amortization schedule. So if you guys have ever seen a schedule like that, the schedule is front loaded with interest. Like it's reversed out and you're paying mass amount of interest, not that much principal through the whole first half of the loan. But you can come in on these sub-2 deals and buy them 3, 4, 5 years into it where the seller has already paid all that for you. So you're coming in at an advantageous point. So it's pretty ridiculous what you can do with buying them in this fashion. Okay, so leverage. Now this is one of the other issues is that a lot of times you're going to build equity in these ones and you don't want to refinance it because if you refinance it, you're resetting the loan, you're resetting the debt, you're going from a 2, 3, 4% into a 7% loan. So a lot of times we want to just leave those in place, but we have all this equity at the end. So what we do with it is that we reach out to private money lenders and we'll actually secure them, we'll actually borrow money for other projects and put them in second position behind a first position sub-2. So that's one way we do it. Another way we do it is if we're negotiating seller finance deals. So we'll negotiate a deal. We're doing what's called a Morby method. And actually Trevor's he's out there. I was so shocked because I didn't know anybody else knew about these and were doing them. And I came down to this meetup and Trevor's like, oh yeah, we've been doing Morby methods. We've been doing them for years. What's so cool about it, a Morby method is where you put debt in first position and then the seller in second position. So what you can do if you have a portfolio of sub-2 properties where you have a bunch of equity, you can actually buy a property from a seller, take their note, instead of putting it on the subject property, put it on your sub-2 properties in second position. So you're basically cross-collateralizing, but you're actually moving them over there so you can actually negotiate cheap debt in second position on your sub-2 properties to fill those ones up, free up your subject property, and then you can refinance it and actually pull out a bunch of equity. So there's a way to do this to where you can leverage your existing properties with your new properties and actually make even more money. Now the other thing too is just cheap debt. We kind of touched on that. Where can you get an investor loan for 2 to 5%? Like it just doesn't happen. When you're looking for money and everything's 8, 10, 12 if you're lucky, and if you're talking to Gators in the Gator community, they're wanting 20%, 30%, really high rates. So that's why sub-2 properties are amazing for that. Like you can get cheap debt. Okay, so now we got some examples. This house right here, it's not too far from here. It's probably a 10-minute drive, maybe 15-minute drive. It's on Brighton Bush Ave. It was supposed to close today. It's the one I mentioned earlier where the sellers, they were having a hard time with the online notary. They went 2 nights in a row. And so anyway, they asked me, they're like, do we send another online notary to do this? I'm like, come on, we've already done this twice. Let's just send a regular mobile notary. Let's get this done. So it was supposed to close today, but due to online notary, like I already did mine last night. I wired the money. We're good to close. So this is a brand new house. This is what's so crazy. These are the deals that you can find. And let's do a deal. Oh my God, that's so small. I didn't realize it was gonna look that small. Okay, so I'll highlight the numbers. So this house was built 8 months ago. This is a D.R. Horton house, 8 months ago. The seller, all we gave the seller is $3,000. So the seller got $3K. The reason why I highlight that number so much is that if you're finding these deals and not having to pay wholesalers or other people for these kind of properties, you actually can get into this for literally $3,000 plus closing costs and your holding, because there's different parts of an entry fee. So I'm only focused on the actual money spent on this one. So like this particular property, the as-is value is between 480 and 500. And the reason why it's a little bit higher than market value right now is just because it has solar, which some people probably like solar, some people don't. I'm not a big fan, but in this case, this one came with solar, so it's got free electricity. We're taking over the solar lien. Solar lien's only like 2% interest, so it's like a really cheap loan anyway. But our total entry fee on this one is $20,656.69. So that's how much we paid to actually acquire the property. So if you're doing this yourself, like I said, you only have $3K. Closing costs are like $5,000. So for $8,000, you could find the same property. But at $20,000 for us, of the purchase price, that's between 4.1 and 4.3% interest, or percentage of the purchase price. So as like an entry fee, when people are looking to get into these, that's super low. That's below 5% to acquire a brand new house. Now the wholesaler on this one, so if you want to be a wholesaler and find these ones and sell them to me or other people that are interested, I paid these guys $12,000 for this deal. So they got $12K for it. There's some other expenses. I have a transaction coordinator that does all my stuff because he's amazing. He's not here tonight, but you'll see a picture of him later. It's because he's amazing. Like literally does all the paperwork, handles all the insurance, keeps me from making mistakes. So this particular seller here is in the Homeland Security. So he just bought, the family just bought this house. Homeland Security up and moved him, sent him over somewhere in the Midwest. So he had to sell right away and didn't really have a choice in the matter. So that's where these kind of opportunities come from. This one actually was off market. So they didn't list it or anything. They reached out, wholesaler, I think they filled out a form somewhere looking to sell their house quick. Wholesaler talked with them, got it locked up, reached out to me, and of course I was interested in this one because the house is literally brand new. Okay, second deal. This is in the same neighborhood. The reason why I picked these two deals is because they are brand new houses and they are very, very close to each other. But this is another kind of deal that you could find. This one's at 4794 Gray Avenue. I have a partner on this one, a gentleman named Brad Contreras. Him and his wife they're just amazing. We're running it as an Airbnb right now, so it's a short-term rental. Similar situation. This one's kind of hard to see, but if you can kind of look and see the furniture that are going on here, this house actually came with all furniture. The guy just bought all the furniture, like $30,000 worth of furniture. And then he's in the military and he got moved to Texas, so he had to up and go. Agent was having a hard time selling this one because the price point, the market shifted, it changed, it dropped. She could not sell the property. So she put it listed, it sat on market forever, nobody was buying it. We luckily got to come in and scoop it up. House was built in 2022. Came with $30,000 worth of furniture. The as-is value is between $5 and $520, somewhere around there. Now our entry fee to get into this one, $23,477.60. So that's what we paid. So it's still below 5% of the purchase of the entry fee is 5%. Like a good deal, typically you're looking for around 10%. That's kind of like the trend or the norm. But if you get anything below 10%, it's amazing. Now the wholesaler that found this deal, we paid him $4,000, I believe. And the seller on this one, I think, got $10,000. So basically this was at $10,000 to the seller. But what we loved about it is we got all the furniture. Like once we saw the furniture, me and Brad were on a call. We actually walked the property with the agent, and the agent's like, we asked him, like, what's going on with the furniture? He's like, oh, you get all the furniture. You can keep it. So we just looked at each other and we're like, Airbnb? Yeah, Airbnb. So this one right here is breaking even as an Airbnb right now. And the reason it is because the taxes, it's a newer build and the taxes hadn't been reset. So like the dude's payment went from like $2,600 to like $3,600 in 1 year because they finally assessed the taxes and go, oh, the county said you have like a year and a half or 2 years of taxes to pay. So the dude's like, peace out, I'm done, I'm not doing this anymore. So we're waiting for it to reset. It's like around March or May, somewhere around there. It's supposed to reset, and then the payment will go back down to like $2,900. So right now in the winter, it's actually still been breaking even. So we've been really, really fortunate on this one. Salem is a great market for short-term, midterm. That's what we've been finding right now. Okay, so how do I find creative deals? Like, what do I look for? How can you do this yourself? This is the part where it's actually, when I'm telling you how to find these ones, it's actually way simpler than what you probably think it's like complicated and hard to find. But the first metric is 90 days on market. So we're looking on market 90 days. Why 90 days? Well, there's something magic that happens around the 90-day mark. And they're very, like, how many agents do we have? Do we have agents here in the room? Oh yeah, we got a lot of agents. Okay. So I would say like the first month is like what the honeymoon period. Everything's going good. Like, hey, the house is, yeah, we haven't really got that much action yet. People are interested. Everything's going good. Everybody's liking each other. And something kind of changes after like the 60 days. Sometimes it's around 60, sometimes it's around 90. The seller's looking at the agent going, what are you doing? Why isn't my house selling? And they're thinking, did I hire the right person? You know, all these things are going through their head. And the agent's probably stressed out. Like, you're probably stressed too. Like, this is not moving. Like, what am I doing? Am I doing something wrong? Everybody starts questioning themselves. So along comes the real estate investor. So we're going to call up the agent. We're going to have a conversation. So if you want to do this yourself, the next step, this is exactly what we tell our team to do. Basically, you get on the phone. We always compliment the listing. So like when you see that other listing we have with all the furniture and how beautiful it is, that's the first thing we always say, like, wow, this place looks amazing. Like, what's the feedback been? Like, what are you hearing from other sellers? Now, this is the part where you just shut up. You just basically close your mouth, don't say anything, let the agent tell you everything that's going on. Now, in this period, you're going to hear all kinds of crazy stuff. They're going to tell you things that, like, you're probably thinking to yourself, like, I would never hire this agent because they just divulged, like, all the information about me. They just said everything. So just sit back and listen and take notes, kind of figure out what's going on, what are the pain points, what's going on with the seller. Now you're going to write all that information down. So get everything about that. Next step is to explain that you work with a creative real estate investor and that we buy things differently. That's all you need to say. I work with a creative real estate investor and we buy things a little bit differently. Do you think the seller would be open to a creative offer? That's it. Agent's going to tell you yes, no, otherwise. If they say no, they're not open to that yet, it means they haven't had enough pain yet. The seller's not enough pain. That's when we kick back into follow-up. We're going to check back with them in like 2 weeks, a month, check back with the seller. Hey, how are things going? Where are things at? We're also going to look at the listing. If they're doing price drops, that's an indication that, hey, there's a little bit more pain there. You can actually come back and say, hey, what if we paid you the price you had? If you did a $20K price drop, what if we paid you the original price before the drop? And we worked out something creatively, or you'd be open to that. So once you go through these steps and get this information, now this is the cool thing. This is what I would do, because I'm all about squatting up. I'm all about JVing. And I know Trevor and the Vesta team is that way too. So just book a call with Vesta Solutions. That's it. That's all you guys got to do. You just got to reach out to Trevor and his team. You guys are doing Subtos, aren't you? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I knew that you guys had been. Trevor and Dane. Dane probably, if you got a commercial property, he'll be all over that for help you with that one. But Trevor is going to find you, because I talk to Trevor all the time. We find stuff, sends it over, we take a look at it. That's all. You don't need to do the whole process from the beginning. It's all about partnering with somebody that's 1 or 2 steps ahead of you. So just get on a call Vesta. They'll help you with the process. They're great. They're trying to find more people to be first-time home buyers, and a sub-2 deal is like the perfect first-time home buyer property. Okay, so the next question that everybody wants to know is like how to protect the seller, because that's something that when you get a little bit more in the beginning, you need to just worry about finding opportunity. And then once you've found opportunity, then you're prepared to kind of answer some basic questions like, how is the seller protected? Because that's the first thing that agents that have never gone through this, they always want to know, like, how do I protect my seller so that, something bad doesn't happen? And that's one of the issues you're going to run into is like, what happens if, you're abducted by aliens? What happens if you get hit by a bus? Like, what happens if you're not there to make the payment anymore? How do we protect the seller in this case? So we protect the seller through paperwork. Paperwork is the number one thing. So there's different ways to do Subto. My first Subto transaction were foreclosure situations where the seller they just wanted out. They wanted a couple bucks and be done with the property. So what we did is it's called a naked Subto. So that's basically when title transfers, the debt stays in their name, but there's no way for the seller to take the property back in case you stop paying. So basically in that situation, if I stop paying, the seller has no recourse. The bank's gonna come in and foreclose, but they're gonna foreclose on me because I'm the one on title. The seller's no longer in the picture. So it really puts them in a bad spot. I did not know I was putting them in a bad spot. When I bought these ones, I thought that's how it was done. But after I did a couple transactions, my transaction coordinator said, hey, do you wanna do a wraparound mortgage? I'm like, what is that? Like it sounds like a sandwich or something. I'm like, what's a wraparound wrap? So what that is you already have the debt, right? So you have a mortgage. We're gonna create a new mortgage that wraps around the existing mortgage in favor of the seller. Now another term for it's an all-inclusive trust deed. I like that one better because it kind of sounds more powerful. Like it's all-inclusive and just sounds super powerful. But it's the same thing. It's a trust deed that's all-inclusive of the underlying deed. So it's the same type of thing. Now what this does for the seller is that if you default, they have an instrument now, just like the bank does, to take the property back. So they can go through the foreclosure process. They can keep your down payment. They can keep all your payments you made along the way. They get to keep all the improvements. So if somebody defaulted on me and done all those things, that would be amazing because I could just take the property back. I get to keep all that, and then I can either rent it out or I can sell it again. I could do whatever I want. So that's the biggest protection to a seller, is to actually make sure you do the paperwork properly.
The transaction coordinator really know all of these different creative?
They do, yeah. The ones that are actually from Pace's community are trained to do these exact transactions.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So that's the biggest way to protect the seller. Now, a couple other things to protect the seller. Servicing. So we use servicing on most of our Subto transactions, and what that is it's just a third party. So my payments go to the servicer. The servicer makes the payment to the mortgage, or if there's a seller finance portion of it, they're making payments to the seller as well. That also proves as a receipt that it actually got paid. So if there's ever a discussion of, hey, did you make the payment, the check's in the mail, all that kind of nonsense, it takes that all out. Either the servicer is neutral. So we use Guardian Contract Services. That's our main one. There's other ones too. There's like Evergreen. I mean, there's a ton of them. There's Santium. There's a whole bunch. It's more of a preference thing. I like Guardian. The only thing I don't like about Guardian is that their website looks like it was built in the 80s. Like literally it's so old. And they only mail checks. They don't do ACH. I mean, you can pay them via ACH, but they don't pay the bills ACH. And where this is a problem, I actually have one in Salem over here where everything was going great for 5 months. Like payment, they drafted out of our account on the 25th. They mailed the check, to the mortgage company. And then what we had happen is that the mortgage company didn't get the check until the 10th of the month. And the seller was freaking out going, hey, is there some problem? Are you, is everything okay? And I'm like, no, everything's been normal. So we had to reach out to the servicer. We actually went into the portal and made another payment. It was like a nightmare. So we actually had to move servicing up 15 days. So literally, so that's one of the issues you're gonna deal with servicing, is that you just gotta find a company that works well with where you're, in this case, Guardian's over here in Tigard, and the mortgage company is all the way down in Florida. So they're really, really far away. So I don't know how mail takes that much time to get to Florida, but apparently it does. But setting up servicing protects you, and it also protects the seller. It gives them a proof of receipt. Now, if the seller is going to be purchasing another property in, let's say, more than 12 months, servicing is what you want to get set up, because they're always worried about debt to income and qualifying for a new mortgage. So when most mortgage loan officers, when they're looking at stuff, they're either counting rental, like a rental type, that's how they view it. They view it as a rental. So they're with the 12-month payment on there, they're viewing that as note income. So It's kind of weird. So like if you're doing like a lease option, those payments are counted. Most of them take it off like in 3 months for DTI. But with note income, which this is because they're a note holder when they're doing a sub 2, it's 12 months. And they can get that wiped off their DTI. So if you have a seller that wants to buy something like, hey, we're already under contract another house, we're willing to sell our house sub 2, then what you would do is purchase it with a lease option. Your option fee would be your down payment, so they can use that as seasoned money on their new transaction, and then exercise it and turn it into a sub 2 after they close on their other transaction. So that's how you do one of those ones. So those are the main ways that how we protect the seller. Now the boogeyman, due on sale. That's the big one that everybody, so you'll find that after you have these conversations with sellers, they're gonna go, like they don't ask you in the very first call, that means that no one's hit them up yet, no one's talked about doing a sub 2 transaction, but they're gonna Google it, and the first thing that they always find on Google is due on sale. Due on sale is the one where, and most of the time the agents will play gotcha. They'll be like, hey, this all sounds good, but what about due on sale? Like, what about that? Well, due on sale, if you're not familiar with what that is, every mortgage, I've not seen one that does not have this in it, but every single mortgage has got a little clause saying that if you transfer title, if I sell it to you, that this mortgage is now due right now. Not like in a year or whatever, it's due right now. So due on sale is a big concern for most sellers. Now the funny part is, the actual percentage that this actually gets called is like 1 in 5,000. It's very, very rare to actually have to go through it. So due on sale basically doesn't happen, but I'm not gonna say it never happens. And when you're finding these opportunities, the kind of transactions where you want to be careful of are ones that are like small community banks. Because when they issue a loan or a mortgage, it's something that we call like they're setting it like on top of the desktop. They're setting it like right here where it's like arm's length, where they're actually taking a look at it and they're actually checking it. Now a big servicer like Mr. Cooper, New Res, Shell Point, Lakeview, all these ones, they're massive servicers. So what they do is literally once they issue it or have the servicing, they throw it in a bin. It's never looked at, it's not checked on. The only time that it usually pops up or mistakes happen are with insurance. So if you do not do the insurance properly after you purchase it, you run a higher risk. And the reason is that they're gonna get this new insurance policy. It's gonna come in and they're gonna go, wait a second, Joe Smith owned this, but Robert Harden's on the insurance and I don't see Joe Smith on here at all. This is weird. This doesn't look right. So they take it to a manager looks at it and goes, something's weird. And they go look up and pull title, and then they're gonna see that title was transferred. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we know what's going on here. So they're gonna send out a letter and do due on sale and try to call the note due. But the funny thing is, when this actually happens, 9 times out of 10, all we do is call the bank and just say, hey, this is what we did. And the bank's like, oh, we were just curious. We just wanted to know what was going on. Are you gonna do anything about it? And they're like, no, we just, if you stop paying, we're gonna foreclose on you, but you're paying the bill. So typically nothing ever even comes after that first interaction. But if it does happen, what we do is that we deed the property back to the seller, and then we set up a lease option with the same terms. Now our contract allows us to do this. So the contract we use has all these provisions in it. So that's the easiest way to remedy due on sale. Now the crazy cool thing is, if you want to be an ultra gangster, this is the hack. We have a guy in Las Vegas, and I know that sounds so funny because he actually is in Las Vegas, but what he does, he's an attorney licensed in Nevada. And so what he does, he has a bunch of LLCs that are seasoned, so they've been capitalized, they're sitting there for this exact purpose. You actually will deed the property to him. He will take it through the bankruptcy court. He'll strip off the due on sale. He'll actually retitle. He'll put the debt in your name, in your LLC's name, and strip the seller off it, all through the bankruptcy court. The only downside to doing it this way, it's kind of expensive. He charges $15,000. So it is a big expense to do. But if you're looking at a note and you're going, wow, over the life of this loan at market rates of 7%, I'm looking at spending another $100,000 in interest, or I can pay $15,000 for him to fix it right now, then it's fixed. So he'll actually retitle it. He'll give it back to you. You'll put it right back into your LLC after he's done. And what's cool about that is that now you have a property where you actually own the debt on it. So you can actually go out and get a HELOC now or some kind of instrument behind it, because you can't do that before then.
Does that negatively affect the seller if you're doing the?
You know what's crazy about that? It doesn't. It doesn't. It actually, because the entity that's filing bankruptcy is not even your entity. It's his entity in Nevada that's actually going through the whole process.
And would you ever do that? You're saying that you would do that even if it wasn't a due on sale issue, right?
No, I wouldn't. I would only do it for due on sale.
You would only do it if due on
Yeah.
sale.
Due on sale came up, I probably would go through the process and do that. Otherwise, I would just leave it alone. Yeah, definitely. So due on sale is not a big issue. It usually is for a seller when they're selling. They're like, I'm really worried about, due on sale. I mean, their biggest concern is you not paying. So if you're, I hate to say it, if you're a crappy buyer, and this is what I define a crappy buyer as, is it someone that's not capitalized enough to weather the storms of taking care of this obligation, because you're putting the seller in a bad position by not paying. Like it's a real big deal. So you should always be concerned about that. You should definitely be, making sure you have reserves. You want to have, like when we underwrite our deals, we're putting in multiple months of carrying costs, those kind of things. And we're trying to be slow about buying new properties until we get enough capital to really service everything. So you definitely want to be prepared for that. I learned this from, I was at a meetup and this guy told me, he's like, I explained what I do, and he goes, oh, you're an equity skimmer. And I was like, what even is that? Like after the meetup, I actually had to go Google it because I just listened to him talk for a while about all these horrible investors that are equity skimming. So I went and Googled it, and equity. So if you don't know what this is, which I didn't know until I figured it out, basically there are people out there that get people to sign over title in foreclosure, and then they don't even have any intention of, taking care of the arrears, improving the property. All they do is just rent it out, make rental income on it until the foreclosure happens. So there's a family that just gets foreclosed on at some point. So it's a horrible, horrible thing. So definitely not an equity skimmer. But that's what that is. So it's kind of a weird thing. Okay, so I told you how to solve due on sale on your own, right? If you want to go through, those are the steps and whatever. But what I do whenever I have this issue, I just call Michael Kim. That's my guy, that's my TC. He actually fixed due on sale. He's done 4 of them. They don't happen that often. He's done them for other people.
He does what, fix them?
Yeah, he fixes them.
Oh, fix
Yeah, literally, he'll call the bank. He'll do the paperwork. If it needs to go into a trust or whatever the solution is that the bank will accept, he goes through the process and figures that out. There's other guys like him too. He's not the only one. It's pretty awesome. Oh shoot, I'm already at the last slide on here. Wow. Okay, so if you guys want to connect with me, that's my Instagram. It's probably the easiest way to reach out to me. I definitely wanted to see if anybody had questions. Do we have people that have questions here?
Yeah, I got some mics.
Let's do it.
I have a question.
Yes, let's hear it.
Okay. Why do you prefer subject to right away versus a lease option? Why would you not just lease option it on the front end?
Okay, so lease option on the front end. There's only two reasons why someone would lease option on the front end. I'll give you the first one. The first one is you're a crappy negotiator. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry to say that, but if you can't talk someone into going Subto, either you're a bad negotiator or the seller is just a tough one that you can't crack. If you have to fall back on lease option, do that. That's the first reason. Now the second reason is for very specific, like if they are purchasing a new property, like you're purchasing a new property, they're under contract, we're gonna recommend lease option so that they can take that off their DTI and then actually use our money as seasoned money for their down payment on the new one. So like that solves all the solutions for sellers in that case. But yeah, just become a better, if it's not that reason, just get better at negotiating.
Why is it better though?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so there's why. So this is a real example. I have a friend that purchased on a lease option. So they purchased on a lease option, and they had like a 3-year option to purchase the house, right? In the meantime, they did not know this. They went to go exercise their option at year 3, and they found out that the seller died. The kids inherited the property. And the kids are like, well, you made a contract with dad, but we don't want to, this is our house. And you're going, oh my God, I gave them a down payment. I made payments along the way. I have equitable interest. I have all these things. Now you have to fight it out in court. If you want to exercise your option, you actually have to sue them and go through the court process to actually buy that property. Now in the case where I get title right up front, where I own it, and there's some dispute that comes later, they have to sue me in order to take the property or to do anything with it. So you want to hold title. That's the main thing. Like, get that title, hold it. But if you can't do a lease option, I would definitely recommend like recording a memorandum or some kind of, memorandum is what we use to prove that you have equitable interest in the property. But there's so many things that can go wrong there. So you just don't want, you want to hold title, every time you can. But if you can't, then resort to lease option.
Throw your hands up and we'll bring you a mic around too if you got questions. Do you know if you can depreciate a lease option?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I have not figured out how to do that myself, but I've been told by others that they have paperwork. I think they do it, like in Oregon, we do it through a land contract. So if we set up a land contract the right way and actually put in there that we're going to take depreciation and the seller is not going to, and we put that in there, I believe you can. I've not done one yet because all the ones, I only have one. It's called in Washington, it's a real estate contract. It's the same instrument we use in Oregon for a land contract, but up there, we have one property, but all the other ones are straight sub-twos.
Yeah, but you were just telling me it's really cool if the buyer and the seller just take depreciation, right?
Well, how would anybody know?
All right, any questions? Throw your hand up and we'll bring you a mic.
You were saying you work with like realtors, and when you're negotiating with them, how do you give them money, or what's your angle with that? Would you pay commission or referral fee?
Yeah, so when we're negotiating it, if negotiations are done right, we're always talking about cash to seller. So however the seller, if the seller and the agent, they need to negotiate that out. I'll give you a good example. One in Hubbard that we closed on 6 months ago, I was talking with the agent and I said, hey, we're looking to get you paid. And she's like, I go, how much are you looking, like, what's your agreement? She's like, oh, I'm gonna make like $12,000 on this. Okay. So next phone call, we came back with our offer. We offered him $13,000. So we knew that cash to seller actually got $1,000, agent got $12,000. So it's all part of negotiations of it. Some people come into it a little bit differently, where they're going to say things like, we're going to pay the agent and we're going to pay this much to the seller. I don't like negotiating that way. I'd rather figure out how much money I need to get into the deal for and give that to them and let them figure it out. Because a lot of times they will negotiate between themselves on that.
Yeah. Do you have any preference on what the underlying first mortgage would be, what kind, if it's conventional loan B or FHA? Does that matter to you?
Ooh, that's so good. This is why that's so good. Government loans, you're going to find when you're doing sub-2 deals, FHA, VA, all the government type loans, title companies do not like closing those. They just don't like, it's a big, big deal for them. So we call it like whack-a-mole, where we're going around, like we had this title company, they're good to go. We had one title company that's like, we'll do FHA, but we will not do VA. I'm like, what's the difference? But whatever, if you'll close it, you'll close it. So we let them close it. And then they came back and said, no, we're not good with FHA anymore. Okay. So we go to this next title company, and then the next, and then the next. So we have title companies that will close them. Conventional is better though, because there's a lot of title companies will close those.
I have Brad right here with AmeriTitle. Brad, can you speak on that, what you guys can do?
Absolutely. It's case by case. We'll be happy to look at that for you.
Well, guess what, dude?
Brad's just a pretty face. He has no idea what AmeriTitle does.
So you know what's dope about that is that that one on Brighton Bush, you guys actually are closing that one. Yeah.
Little do you know that you're not actually allowed to.
Surprise, surprise.
I had a question on, it sounds like sorry.
Yeah, right there, Alex, yeah.
It sounds like you're doing a lot of Airbnbs. How do you determine, is Airbnb kind of a backup for you, where it's like, oh, this wouldn't cash flow as a long-term rental, let's just Airbnb it? Or is that really kind of your long-term solution?
Okay, so all of our underwriting's based on long-term rents. So everything's long-term rents. We try to go for short-term, mid-term if we can. Like Mike here is doing our mid-terms and our short-terms, like the Loa property. So if you guys are looking to get a property manager that is a rock star, Mike is right here. He's a short-term, long-term. The only problem though, so this is why Mike's not helping us with the one in Salem, is that it's actually not allowed by the HOA, and it's not a legal Airbnb. So you have me, I'm on record saying that. But the only reason we're doing that is that my partners, they self-do their own, and that's their business model, illegal Airbnbs. Now, if we do get shut down, we're just gonna pivot and go to long-term rents. So it's not my favorite, but we will do illegal short-term rentals if needed. Not our preferred, but back to that though, underwrite for long-term rentals, because you always wanna, the reason why I have a lot of friends are like, wholesalers bring them a deal and they're like, this is an amazing short-term rental. But the thing is, it only works as a short-term. Like I have a friend over in Bend, same thing, got sold this deal. Oh my God, she's in so much pain because after they shut down her area, she's losing like $1,500 a month. So she immediately sold the property and it was a big mess. So always underwrite for long-term. Go for short-term or mid-term if you can, because you're gonna make more cash flow, but always fall back on long-term.
Hopefully you can help me figure your strategy a little bit. So you mentioned you want to make $25 million so that you can refinance out $1 million, but you're refinancing all of these subject to loans. So how does that work when you said you don't really want to do that?
Yeah, I'll give you, I don't want to, but that's the exit play for me on those ones. So I have two different exits. One is a refi, and the reason, I'll give you an example. So let's take my Malala property that I bought in 2004. Okay, so roughly say $200,000 worth of equity that I can refinance out right now and pull out. I don't want to reset the loan on that one. I'm actually putting a HELOC on there. I do lending and a bunch of other things for acquisitions and use that money. But my long-term play at some point is to quit building the portfolio and then just start refinancing those ones out. So let's say I reset the loan. Let's say that rent rates are $2,000 a month and I can pull out $300,000 and match that to where like literally money in, money out, the tenant's now paying that debt. I can now take $200,000-$300,000 out tax-free and I can live on it, do whatever I want on it. When stuff's appreciating $1 million a year, you could literally take your portfolio and slowly do that and pull out $1 million worth of equity every single year at that point.
Hey Rob, so how do you deal with
properties that have a high amount of equity when you're buying Subto? Is there a number that doesn't make sense per se? If there's 100K in equity, how would you work with that?
Yeah, those are really difficult ones because those require a lot of negotiations and a seller that is definitely open to carrying a second. So a lot of these sellers will have a price in their head. So I'll give you an example. One in Salem on Broadway Street, we had a seller that they would not take less than, I think it was like $385, but they only owed like $270 on it. So we gave them a down payment, but they would not budge off that number. They just wanted it. So we're like, well, what if we just gave you a second, but we set up the payments where we gave them, I believe it was they're carrying a note for $85,000 at 0% interest for $100 a month for 15 years. I know. But they have a number in their head. They're like, I have to have 385. We're like, okay, we can get 385, but we'll give you $100 a month. So we have a bunch of those where we have 0% interest seconds for only $100. Like I have one in Troutdale, the guy's carrying $45K, actually no payments on the $45K, 0%. And it's kind of funny because he called me up like 6 months after and he's like, hey, would you give me $30,000? I just wipe it out for 30 grand. And I said, let me take it to the team. I went back and ran the numbers like, what is money right now at 12% interest? What do I have to do to get it to 45,000 in this time frame? And the number came out to be 12K. So I offered the guy 12,000 and he did not get back to me. So, but yeah, that's the other thing too. You can renegotiate later on these ones. So, but yeah, people are willing to carry notes for very little.
Are you ever underwriting deals with negative cash flow?
Oh yes, we're definitely.
And so you're banking on the appreciation and other aspects of the tax benefits of the deal.
100%. Like those two deals you have up there, those are negative. Like as a long-term rent, those are definitely, by the time you factor in property management and just vacancy, like those are negative, at least $300-400 a month. So the only exit on those ones, well, there's two reasons why we buy those ones, actually. One is depreciation, because so little to get into creates a giant tax, depreciation. And then the second one is that we're looking at long-term appreciation. But our other exit is called a lease option. So that's the one thing I'm focused on in 2025. The Brighton Bush property is one that I'm going to go do lease option. And what a lease option is you bring in a tenant that's going to pay typically over market rents, because they're going to have an option to purchase the house in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. They're going to give us an option fee. And then if they exercise the option, we're going to have an inflated purchase price. So like on Brighton Bush, if everything's done right, a 3-year option fee will bring us roughly $100,000 in 3 years. So not a bad way to do an exit.
Do you also benefit yourself from the loan pay down over that option time?
That's the other part, is that you're getting, so that's the crazy part. When you start building a portfolio, I think the last time I looked at the one we have right now, the principal pay down every month is around 30 grand. So like every single month, it's like a hidden savings account that is, basically it's my retirement. That's the way I'm viewing it, is that my renters are paying down $30,000 worth of principal every single month that is going towards my family's retirement. So that's the other reason why you want to get doors.
So when you have the slight negative cash flow, you're not really worried just because it's loan pay down.
Exactly, loan pay down, and we're in such a great, Oregon is an appreciation market. This is, right now it doesn't feel like it, but in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it's going to feel like it.
Cool question in the back.
So my question was exactly about your strategy for retirement. As a real estate investor with 29 property right now, are you willing to keep debt for long term or start paying off your portfolio and for retirement, or what's your most long-term strategy?
I do not want to pay off any of it. In fact, I want more debt. That's the crazy part. Debt, everybody thinks debt, there's good debt and bad debt. Real estate, debt being paid by somebody else is good debt. So if you're paying debt, then you got to figure out how to get someone else to pay that debt. So that's my whole strategy on there.
Cool, up front.
Can you explain depreciation? Because you had the numbers of 2024 was 60%, then it went a year later, went 40%, then 20%. I have no idea what that means.
Yes, okay, so there's this thing called bonus depreciation. I should get that dude in back to come up here because he's got it down. But yeah, bonus depreciation is something that got phased out. Like it was part of the job and tax cuts, or what job?
TCJA, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
Boom.
2018 Trump tax law.
Now is that coming back? Or are we going to get 100%? I've heard that we're going to get 100% bonus again.
He wants to bring it back more than he wants to absorb oxygen, but it is not for sure. It's highly likely it's going to be in his first damn bill. It's not a given. It only lasted for 5 years at 100%. Whatever your cost seg guy finds, like 20 to 35% of your building, rather than shortening the life, pal, you can take it the very first year. But because of budgeting rules and blowing a hole in the budget, they said, hey, it only lasts for 5 years and then it sunsets. So in 2023, we're only bonusing 80%. 2024, only bonusing 60. 2025 is 40%. Trump will try and take it back. But
So,
what it's worth, Department, cost seg penciled out before bonus existed, just not crazily. I sold it before bonus existed. People were doing it because it's smart business.
So Gabe told me another interesting story. You can also decelerate your depreciation if you have too many losses and extend it out longer. Gabe, why would
yes.
someone do this?
So they don't pay taxes for 60 years instead of 30?
Interesting.
I love it. There's so many cool things you can do with it. But yeah, so it steps down. So the bonus part is, so if the study generated, say, $90,000 worth of depreciation, like at the 100%, you're getting all 90K. And then as that steps down, it's only like 80% of 90K, then 60%. So as it steps down, you just have to buy more properties to kind of get the same impact, which does suck, because the 100% is where the real, it's just easier to do it. You only have to buy maybe 2 or 3 properties to wipe out your income. But as it steps down, you have to buy a couple more. And that's where these strategies really come in, where you can get into a property for, like I showed you, like $20K to get a door. Oh my God, it's so easy to wipe out your income when you're doing it that way.
So I talk to my friend Brandon here every week about buying properties creatively, and he always tells me, "Why would I do that when I can just pay half price, all cash?" So can you put it in like a third grade level why he should do it this way rather than his way?
See, that's the beautiful thing about real estate investing is that there's so many different ways to do the same thing. Like if you're buying 50 cents on the dollar and you're rehabbing it and you can refinance it and get all your money back and be no money into the deal and depreciate it, I would do that all day long too. It's just different types of deal structures. So I would do that. The problem that I see
Not his way, not his way.
You wouldn't do it that way? The problem I see with that way is that those deals don't come along. I mean, you're a wholesaler, you're getting it the best of the deals, but a lot of the deals I see floating around are not like that. Like 9 out of 10 of them are deals where you're going to do the process and you're going to leave 50, 60, $100,000 into it.
I got one story I want to see if you've ever heard of this. So this guy right here, Jeff, you raise your hand. Yeah. He flew from the East Coast to come see. Can you hear me? Okay. So this dude bought a subject to deal where he got the seller to pay him grand to take over the deal. That's pretty cool. Have you done one of those?
No, I'm not gangster level like that. Like getting people to pay you to buy it. We had a Morby method that did not pan out. Well, it still might. We're still under contract, but the guys that brought it to me did a crappy job of explaining it to the seller. Because I got on the phone with the seller and I started talking about second position, and the seller got all freaked out. What do you mean second position? I thought I was gonna be in first position. I'm like, why would I give you $300,000? Like I could buy 5, 6 houses with $300K. But they wanted $300,000 down, and it blew up, and yeah.
Cool. One last question, if anyone has one. Oh, one more? Yell it out.
You said you were pulling lists. Where are you getting your lists from? Or what are you using for that?
Okay, so when you're pulling lists, I personally use PropStream. I love PropStream. There's a bunch of different tools. You can use Batch. You can use any of those ones. The list that you want to pull to find Subto deals are low equity. So if you go into any of these tools, they will have a low equity list. Why low equity? These are people that they can't sell traditionally. They try to sell traditionally, they have to come out of pocket to sell it. So if you pull a low equity list, you're getting someone, if they want to sell, someone that's gonna at least have a conversation with you and go down that path.
So are you calling them even if you don't have any idea if they want to sell? You're just calling.
Heck yeah. So if we have a cold caller, we're like, here's the list. Now, granted, like the numbers are, they got to call 1,000 people to get 40 to raise their hand and say, I'm interested in selling. And out of those 40, you're only going to get one person that you'll probably go into contract with. So you're having lots of conversations to get that one.
Yeah, I want you guys to recognize too how quick Rob did this too. He built this portfolio of $13 million in how many years did you say?
But the bulk of it was last, like under 3 years.
Yeah, and so imagine now, like 20 years out, that's a $39 million portfolio if he doesn't buy one more deal. And how many total dollars have you spent?
We've actually spent quite a bit. I would say probably 1.5 million.
That's still not that much to acquire $13 million
No,
of real estate at that rate. So like anyone can truly do this stuff. There's lots of ways for you guys to buy deals. And like there's people like Rob who will tell you exactly how to do this. There's no shortage of these deals. It's not secret information. Like he's not hiding these deals from you and he's not hoarding them to himself. There's an unlimited amount of deals. That's what's cool about real estate. They come up every single week. You just have to have the information and know how to do it. So I just want to thank Rob for sharing. Like he just taught you guys how to buy deals with no money.